Hello and welcome to Brief Encounters, a podcast by the DC Bar Communities. My name is Kiran Nasser-Gore. I'm a DC Bar member and also an international and arbitration and international litigation expert. Today on the show, we have Mike Ehrenstein of Ehrenstein Sager in Coral Gables, Florida. We've had Mike on the show before a few months back, and I was really pleased to interview him then. We spoke about some substantive legal issues as well as cases that were pending or anticipated to be pending before the U.S. Supreme Court. Today, we have Mike back. Welcome back, Mike.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be back with you.
So while last time we talked about substantive legal issues and principles, today we're here to talk about your firm and how you run your firm. I will say, as someone who also owns a super small law firm here in DC, they don't teach us how to do this in law school. Not only is there no business development class in law school, there's also no marketing class in law school, although there's a great case for adding those to the curriculum. Tell us a little bit about your firm and how you came to be where you are today.
Well, Ehrenstein Sager is a small law firm headquartered in Coral Gables, Florida. We have 3 lawyers. We have 2 paralegals. And we focus primarily on complex, high-stakes business litigation. That litigation falls into a few different categories, industry-wise, involving aerospace, energy, healthcare, real estate, hospitality, construction, and transportation, which are sort of the cottage industry categories that one finds here in South Florida. Oftentimes, the cases that we're involved with have an international component, and we focus on actually trying the cases. Most cases obviously don't go to trial, but we are known primarily as a business law trial boutique. So that's us in a nutshell.
So there's nothing small or simple about the kinds of cases you have just described. It sounds like you might end up in any variety of state or federal courts, or also in international fora when you're working on these kinds of cases. Does that issue or challenge play into your business development strategy or what you tell clients you are capable or not capable of handling?
Absolutely. So typically, the types of cases in which we're involved have, when I say high stakes, they are typically north of 100 million in dispute, and in some cases have been over a billion and a half in dispute. And those types of cases, typically we end up facing off against, battalions of lawyers on the other side from much larger law firms. And so a lot of times, potential clients will be asking me, well, how does a little tiny firm like yours actually go up against a much larger force?
That's exactly what I want to know too. How do you do it? Or how do you approach doing it?
Well, you don't have to be big to be strong. You don't have to be large to be powerful. And sometimes being big can be a huge disadvantage. So, with a tip of the hat to a great law firm marketer, Ross Fishman, who came up with this analogy, we are the Carolina Reaper of law firms. We're small but mighty.
I love it.
How does that happen? How do you become a pint-sized powerhouse in a realm dominated by giants? And there's really 2 prongs that we focused on in order to be able to do that successfully. Well, actually 3 prongs. One is we're very careful about choosing the clients that we want. We've been fortunate and have been able to garner a little bit of a reputation and are given the opportunity to pitch for cases. Sometimes we pass. And sometimes we're actually offered representations where we say, you know what, this just isn't worth it because it doesn't align with our culture or it doesn't align with our other business exigencies or needs. So we're, number one, careful about the cases that we take on, so we never actually get to the point where we're overburdened. Number 2, as excellent as the team that we've developed in-house is, the team that we've developed in-house is a team that has, without wanting to pat myself on the back too hard, in my view, we have excellent experience and judgment and strategy when it comes to being able to marshal responses to these types of cases. if we don't have the horsepower to actually get through, 12 terabytes of data, that is something that we can rely on technology to help with. So that's really the second prong. So the first prong is be careful about what we take in. The second prong is we rely on technology a lot. And the technology that we rely on is the kind of technology that really does level the playing field between larger firms and smaller firms. And that's particularly true when it comes to the discovery process. So e-discovery vendors, reviewers, that type of technology and service is affordable, reliable, and accurate, and has served us well in these larger cases. The third, and I think the most important aspect of being able to handle these larger, more complicated cases is relationships. And by that, what I mean is in the 30 some years that I've been doing this, I've gotten to meet a lot of people and become friends with a lot of people and have good relationships with a lot of people, a lot of lawyers, particularly through the Litigation Council of America, where I served as president for last year, which is an organization that has about 3,000 really high quality trial lawyers throughout the United States. There isn't a geography where I can't find an expert and somebody who I trust. And these aren't people that I've just met in passing. Most of these people are people that I've developed relationships over the years. And so there isn't a place where I can't get assistance when I need it. There isn't a field in which I can't rely on somebody else's expertise, that I can't get help.
So there's a couple of great things wrapped up in what you just said. I'll maybe introduce a little bit about my own background, which is I started
Yeah,
my career at a global law firm. I was at DLA Piper, which of course has offices in every city, state, and country you could virtually imagine, or a partner affiliate firm in all of these same places. That's a very different approach to exactly what you just described. And in the
sure.
years since I left global law firms, I think, at least this is my view, I wonder if it seems like you share it. My relationships are what drive how I can practice. And I know I have better lawyers rather than just depending on who it is we happen to have in such and such office.
Absolutely.
Who is the best in such and such place? And how can I draw upon that person and the relationship I will build or have already built with them in order to provide the best quality of services to my clients?
That is absolutely true. And I would just add that the relationships that I have through the LCA domestically are complemented by relationships that I've developed over the years through the Africa Energy Chamber and also through Abacus Worldwide. So when I need somebody to help me with boots on the ground in Luanda, I know who to call. And again, it's not just a person that I've never met or dealt with, it's a person who I've interacted with and who I have trust and confidence in. There is a case pending right now for our listeners in which we represent the Republic of Angola in some litigation that has been initiated in Washington, D.C. And, when it came time for us to look for local counsel, the relationship that I had developed with Kiran over the last few months was a relationship that I felt confident relying on. I had seen some of her work. I was familiar with her writing. And so it was an easy thing to do to reach out and say, look, we need local counsel. And of course, Karen has done a spectacular job helping us. So the three prongs are limit what you take in, be careful about what you take in, rely on technology, expand and rely on good relationships. And those are the three ways that have been able to go at it. I would agree with you 100% that if you are playing against big law and they have 17 offices around the world, the person that you're going to be squaring off against, the lawyer that you're going to be squaring off against, may have an incentive to not go to the best person, but to go to the person that they have. And when you have enough relationships like we do, it gives us the opportunity to always search for and find the best fit to fit the needs of the representation.
So, Mike, all of that reflects a very proactive style on your own part and also on the part of your entire team. And it certainly addresses the capacity challenges, the scaling challenges. How do you deal with these really complicated, large, complex disputes? But what are the proactive steps you take internally? Tell us a little bit about your leadership style, the teamwork style that you garner within your team. Who's your dream team? How do they work with you to support the objectives that you have on behalf of these clients who are relying upon you to go up against what I'll call the big dogs, for lack of a better word?
It's unfortunate that this is only an audio podcast and you can't see my face because as you're asking me about my dream team, I'm smiling from ear to ear. And the reason I'm smiling so widely is because I have my dream team. The two lawyers who are my partners are superlative lawyers. They are excellent legal thinkers. And Latasha Johnson is just one of the smartest lawyers I've ever dealt with. Brett Sager has a mind like a trap when it comes to facts. You can run a million facts past him, and once he has them, they're there forever. I don't have that capacity. I don't have either of their capacities when it comes to that kind of stuff. But the three of us together, I think, make a formidable team. So, how does my leadership style, I guess, work with them? I've been thinking about leadership a lot lately because there's always the direction of your firm and the strategy. Do you want to grow? Do you want to stay the same? So all of that depends on being able to have a common vision, common values, common culture. Our culture, we have decided that we wanted to be small. We want to stay small. And we don't have any intention of, growing and taking over. We don't want to take over the world like Binky and the Brain. We just want to be small and effective. And the reason why we want to be small, there's this saying out there that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I don't know who came up with it, but it's a great phrase. And to me, what it suggests is the importance of culture in shaping success. You can have the greatest strategy in the world, but if the culture isn't supporting the strategy, it's not going to work. So, for example, if your strategy is that you want to grow to be 50 lawyers or 100 lawyers or 1,000, if that's your part of your strategy, but the culture is one which is risk averse. The culture is one which doesn't encourage a lot of collaboration and sharing of risks and benefits. That strategy isn't going to work in a culture that is the one I've just described. In our case, what we realized when we formed our firm was that the values that we had, the culture that we wanted, was necessarily a small culture. And inherent in that is, to have a leadership style which is not necessarily, there's not one of us that leads. I wouldn't say it's an equal triumvirate, but the culture is one where leadership is based, hopefully, on humble listening prior to decisive action. And what I mean by that is, and this was a lesson that I learned kind of the hard way over many, many, many years. You were saying about the things that I didn't learn in law school. My law school, the University of Miami, it was a great law school, taught me all kinds of great things, but I didn't learn in law school how to lead. And I had to learn it, maybe the hard way. And I'm sure I made plenty of mistakes along the way. One of the mistakes that I'm sure I made was to lead like a dictator. This is how it is. This is the way it's going to be. And no matter how good my intentions might have been, the leadership style of pushing people to do certain things was not as effective, at least not in my experience, as a leadership style which is based on humble listening and pulling people towards the common goals that you share. And so hopefully over time, I've gotten a little bit more wise and learned to listen better and really try to absorb everybody's perspective before making any kind of decisions.
That's a great lesson learned. It's certainly not one that comes up at all in law school because we don't learn about how to, or at least I didn't learn at Brooklyn Law School, how to be in an organization, whether it's in a leadership position or not. And as big firm lawyers, which I once was, you just sort of graduate to the next step without anything changing other than your, maybe your salary and the role you're expected to play in the team, but without training to do so. But contrasting that, obviously there are benefits to the big firm model, and it is the ability to be everywhere and do everything and not have to work about capacity and scaling. What are the benefits of being in a tiny law firm or the little dream team law firm?
I think the benefits include that I'm really in control of my own destiny. And that's something that I like. If I'm not happy with the amount of money that I made this year, I got one person to talk to, me. I can't look at the performance of, 2,000 other people that are my partners and say, well, I had a great year, but bankruptcy was down and real estate transactions were kind of middling. So the amount of money that I'm going to be taking home isn't as much as I would have liked it to be. If I'm not taking home what I want to take home, it's up to me to hustle up and make more, or to make changes to the way I've been doing things. I prefer that to the larger firm. And I also think in larger firms, I bet if you looked at the websites of the AmLaw 100, I don't know this because I haven't done it, so hopefully I'm not going to get in trouble. But something tells me that if you look at the websites of the AmLaw 100, you're going to see websites that say a lot of the same things. We're really big, we're everywhere, we're innovative, we're collaborative, we're creative, and we have a very cordial, upbeat atmosphere where everybody loves each other, or words to that effect. I just don't think that that's possible realistically in a large organization. When you have a small organization, it is much, much easier to develop strong bonds of trust, strong bonds of reliability that simply evaporate as an organization gets larger and larger. And so, although they might be everywhere and they might be old, they might be everywhere, they might be able to do all of these great things, I don't think that the culture that they have is a culture which would fit the values that we have. And our values are really focused on humility, on creativity and innovation and collaboration. It's hard to say that you can be collaborative and innovative and creative when you have teams sprawled out across the world, and there are all kinds of dynamics working in a large firm that don't apply in a smaller firm. So I think that for me, and I'm not, please don't misunderstand, I'm not dinging every large firm and saying there's no such thing as a great large law firm or anything like that. I'm just saying for me, for the values that I have and for the things that are important to me in the way that I practice, a smaller firm works much better. It aligns much better with my values.
So let me ask another question. Being in a small environment, a more flexible environment with fewer players, you probably were better poised to be reactive to the way legal practice has changed just since COVID-19 started closing offices. And of course, we've since come back for the most part. And I can see your video, although our listeners can't. You're clearly in your office and I'm in my office. But our practice has changed dramatically. How did you in a small environment experience that? And did it hamper your practice or harm or impede your interests as you worked for your clients along the way?
Well, COVID certainly definitely impacted everybody, right? It impacted our firm the way it impacted most firms that have cases in court that need to be pushed to trial. And that is primarily because cases weren't being pushed to trial, where there were no trials for a long time. So that delayed a lot of work. But I think your question goes more towards, the management side of the practice. How did the impact of the pandemic hit us as a small firm? Well, again, without wanting to denigrate, the relationships that assuredly exist in large firms, when you're in a small firm, the strength and closeness of the commitment that we make to each other is more than this is my colleague. This is another lawyer in my office of 100. Latasha and Brett are people with whom I have long-term relationships. I've known Latasha probably for 20 years. I've known Brett for at least 12 years. So the commitments that we've made to each other really helped us get through what was, a tough time for everybody. We spent a lot of time checking up on each other, making sure that everybody had everything that they needed, checking up on wellness and sort of, everybody's state of mind. I think that probably happened on some level in most firms. I just tend to think that because of the closeness of the relationships that we have in a small firm, it may have happened for us on a more maybe meaningful level rather than on a, hey, everybody, we're all getting together on a Zoom call for Zoom cocktails today, which we also did, by the way. but we were really concerned about each other, genuinely concerned about each other in a way that I think would have been diffused on a larger platform.
Yeah, it must have been a completely different experience, I can certainly imagine. And what I'm also seeing is that the bigger firms are facing bigger challenges today as they return to in-person work, and some of those relationships have dramatically changed. It sounds like your relationships are intact, strong, and thriving, which is an achievement in and of itself.
Yes.
I know we're coming up on the end of our podcast time. Let me ask one last question of you. What are you and your team looking forward to in 2023, whether it's casework or otherwise?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm looking forward to continuing the good work that you and I are doing together representing Angola in DC. I'm looking forward to continuing to market into the Africa energy sphere and looking forward to just continuing to enjoy each other's professional camaraderie and good success.
Cheers to all of that. Sounds great. I think that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much, Mike, for coming back to Brief Encounters by the DC Bar Communities. I'll refer again our listeners to our prior podcast where we had a lot of fun talking more substantively about some of the challenges of international investment, international energy, and also the various players that you see in the African and other markets. For now, I'll sign us off. So again, my name is Kieran Nasser-Gore on behalf of the DC Bar, and I was really pleased to have you here today, Mike. Thank you again from Aaronstein Sager.
Thank you so much for having me. It was, like always, a pleasure to speak with you.